Okay, Native American weapons and art. I can't get enough of it, obviously. So let's talk about ball clubs, also called wooden ball clubs, ball-headed, and fixed ball. I love the geometry of these. That's what's really interesting, and the way the light plays on them. Like if you're in a drawing class working on shading, these would be great objects to work with. So let's look at this one from the Iroquois Nation. Obviously a pretty simple example. I'd say the important thing to notice here is the curvature as we move up, and that's fairly common. One source I read stated that these were used for about 300 years, and one thing that's for certain is that they faded in the 19th century. They're made from one solid piece of wood, which you can't actually say about all Native American war clubs. Not even close. Here's one from the Menominee. Hey, they appear in my book. And a typical construction, again, although you're going to see on the other side, it has a interesting feature. Now, these were usually made out of a sapling that was growing on a riverbank, and the ball that you're looking at there was kind of the root portion. So that's what it's called, the root ball. So that's where you got the mass for it. And the sapling or the branch had to be growing in a certain direction, mostly horizontally, so that the maker wouldn't have to cut against the grain, and that makes it stronger. Here's the other end that I talked about, and two practical features there. One, the grip, kind of the space there for your hand to fit into, and of course the spike. You can imagine how that was used. Notice the medial ridge. See that central raised ridge? It has that throughout the weapon too, so interesting, kind of like a sword. And now for the star of the show. Wow. So it was a long history of trying to make your weapons, armor, etc. look fearsome. I think the maker definitely accomplished that here. That's just flat out creepy. All the damage around the mouth, which would presumably be from actual use, adds to the effect, certainly. From the little I know, I'd say these were rare, maybe even very rare, so I was glad to see this in person. Just incredible, even at a distance. Actually, I think the effect is even better from there. Imagine how surreal it would be to notice that in the hand of the warrior you're facing. Here's another really cool one, and the notable feature visually is pretty obvious, so I think that's supposed to be a snake. And you can see where it has the exact same type of curvature that we talked about at the beginning of the video. Something I haven't mentioned yet is that these were predominantly used in the Northeast and the Great Lakes region. I also want to mention that having an animal depicted on the weapon was probably an invocation type mechanism, like you're actually trying to call forth maybe a certain power to a certain extent, you know what I mean? I don't understand the spiritual beliefs very well, but that was definitely a thing. So you would tie feathers to, the shaft of a war club, and that was supposed to imply some kind of power from the spirit world that you were either, like I said, invoking or maybe just emulating. I know the view isn't very good here, the definition isn't very good, but I want you to see the actual just hand-carved marks, right? You can see how the ball was formed, and I think it's always cool to see the evidence of the handmade construction on something so old. And our final one might be my favorite. I love this one. Love the lines on it, the way the colors show the contrast in the shapes. And of course we can only imagine how great it looked when it was first made. These are so striking, pun intended, that rich Europeans would have their portraits taken with them in the 1700s. Interesting cultural side note there. So, wooden ball clubs. They are fascinating. Thanks.